All right, good evening and welcome to the December regular board meeting for Waseca Public Schools. Tonight is our regular meeting as well as our Truth in Taxation meeting. Today is Thursday, December 15th, 2022. It is 6 o'clock p.m. and we are in the Central Building second floor conference room. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, could I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion we approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Next is recognition of visitors, and we don't have any visitors here in the audience. Just a reminder that anyone is welcome to come and give comments of 5 minutes or less, or you can send an email to wasecadistrict@gmail.com and we will read it in a future meeting. Moving on then to our Pay 2023 Truth in Taxation presentation by Elizabeth Berry. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you for your time this evening. As we get the presentation pulled up, this is for taxes payable in 2023. So it will be calendar year 2023 for our community members. And for us as a school district, this revenue is applicable to our 2023-2024 budget year. So if you want to go ahead and move forward. Just a little bit about the tax hearing presentation. We are required to have a public meeting. There are certain dates when we can have this meeting, as you can see, between November 24th and December 30th, and it has to be at 6 o'clock in the evening. So that is why we are pushed our meeting back a half an hour to meet those requirements. It can be part of a regularly scheduled meeting, and after that meeting, after we allowed for public comment, we can make a motion to move forward with a final approval. We do need to talk about a couple of different things during the presentation. We have to talk about what our current expenditures and revenues are looking like budget-wise for our current year, so that would be 2022, 2023. And we're going to talk a little bit about where our audit landed for our fiscal year 22, which would be 21-22. We are going to talk about all of the different components of the levy, what that looks like for us, whether it's an increase or a decrease. We will allow time for public comment, and then again, move forward with a final approval at the end of the evening. Just a little bit about school finance in general. Really, this slide just tries to reiterate or kind of reinforces the idea that public schools are highly regulated. So there's a lot of different things or outside factors playing into school district revenue. Many things are either set by state law, they are set by different tax policies, a lot of different formulas that go into calculations. Many, again, items that school districts need to follow. Again, the truth in taxation process just in general is regulated on what school districts can do, how we can do it, and what information we need to present. So again, this is just a little bit more information on all of the rules and regulations that school districts need to follow. So a little bit about how our levy process plays out. Over the summer, school districts work on the levy system, entering information, estimates, and by September 8th, then the Minnesota Department of Education gives every district a preliminary levy calculation on all of the different formulas that go into the different components of the levy. September 22nd, we met as a district and a school board during our regular school board meeting to talk about what our preliminary levy would look like. At that meeting, we usually ask the board to approve the maximum amount. The reason for that is there's still a lot of information going into the levy system, a lot of recalculating. The Department of Education is making sure all of the formulas are set correctly, and we as districts just continue to have that opportunity to review information to make sure that it's as accurate as possible. Mid-November, those property tax statements should have gone out to all of our property tax payers. And then as of this evening, we are holding our Truth in Taxation meeting, and then following the hearing, we will ask the board to approve a specific dollar amount rather than a maximum. We will be looking for a specific dollar amount. Just some different things that play into property taxes, and maybe you as a property tax owner are wondering maybe why things are changing for you individually. These are things that come into play when for school district levies. So it could be a change in your market value or your class rate. So really that just means the value of your home or the type of property that you hold changes in enrollment for us as a district, that plays into all of the different calculations. So whether we have increased enrollment, declining enrollment, stagnant enrollment, kind of back up to relating to number one with the market value, that change in levy versus state contribution. So as property values increase, usually what happens then is that state contribution is actually going to decrease and the levy portion is going to increase. So even though maybe nothing would change for a school district, property values usually increase year after year. So the revenue that the school districts receive will remain the same, but maybe where that revenue is coming from just kind of shifts in balance. So maybe less from the state and more from our property taxpayers. Another thing that may change it would be voter approval or disapproval. So as school districts go to their community, they may ask for operating referendums or bonds. That would change a levy. That kind of goes back to that local decision or requirement or adjustment for prior years. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, we as school districts are making a lot of estimates, a lot of it dealing with enrollment at that time. And so what the levy does is it actually kind of is a 3-year cycle of what we had estimated and what those actual dollar amounts were. And then those adjustments are made in future levies to make sure that the true revenue was actually allocated to districts appropriately. Okay. Something very important for you as a community member is to know your valuation. So this is a property classification and market value, just an example. This is not necessarily Waseca, but it is a snapshot of what this would look like for you. These are sent in the spring, so we would have all received these the spring of 2022. Just kind of right now it's too late to do anything about this, but it's kind of a heads up. Coming forward, look for those in the spring of 2023. If you feel like there's a misstatement, if you have a question with this, the spring is the time to ask those questions and potentially contest what that statement is telling you. And usually there's directions on there who to contact. It's usually your county assessor of answering those questions and making sure that that valuation is correct for your property value. Two different things that I really like to touch on during this presentation is just different opportunities, and these do flow through the levy, so that's why we're talking about them this evening. One of them being the local optional revenue. So a little bit of history. Prior to this opportunity, school districts would need to go to their community to ask for operating referendums to help with their just general operations of a district. So for Waseca Public Schools, we had gone to the voters in the fall of 2011 and had the community did support an operating referendum of about $700 per pupil unit to help the school district with the operations. That was good for 6 years. So from fiscal year 13 through fiscal year 18, we had that $7 per pupil unit operating referendum in place. This came into play with local optional revenue, and so what it is really a legislative action for school boards to be able to generate some of that operating revenue on their own without going to the voters for approval. And so what we did as a school district is once that our operating referendum that we had asked for expired, we let that expire and then basically implemented this. So it was kind of a like for our district truly, where this is $724 per pupil unit. And then this is what we have been using since that time, since fiscal year 2018, to help with our overall operations. A really great component of this is it's equalized. And what that means is there's a state portion of it and there's a levy portion of it. So about 40% comes from state aid and about 60% comes from levy. So this is a nice shared program for us. It's a great opportunity for us to continue our operations with a shared portion coming from the state. Just another thing to mention, we are 1 out of 94 districts currently. Now that doesn't include any of the November elections that just happened, so that's maybe outdated information, but in general, we are about 1 of 94 districts that do not have an additional operating referendum above the local optional revenue right now. For long-term facility maintenance, again, this was a really great opportunity, especially for us outstate districts, to really continue to do some really good work facility-wise. So what this really revenue is for deferred maintenance and for health and safety items. So the way that I describe this is if you take your building, you flip it upside down and you shake it, anything that stays is eligible for this revenue. And again, like I said, this has been a really great resource for us personally to be able to continue to invest in our buildings and maintain them. If you want to go ahead and flip again. Another great component of this and a legislative action is this ag bond credit. And so for pay 2023, this will ramp up to the final level that in current statute. So it will the credit will increase to 70%, and this affects all of our existing debt service levies. For Waseca's population, we have about 36% egg land, and for our egg land owners, this is a combined credit of almost just shy of $600,000. So that's a fantastic opportunity for them. And I do just want to point out that this is not a shift from any other local taxpayers as a credit for them. This really comes from state taxes, sales tax. This is a component of state, and the state aid comes to us in the form of a credit of, like I said, almost $600,000. And if you're ever wondering, does this apply to me? Again, I have another picture of evaluation up there and where you would find that and where you would find that credit. Okay. Just a really large snapshot of kind of what we've done historically with our levy amount. So if you look to the very bottom, 2023, so again, calendar year 2023, applicable to financial year 23-24, we're looking at a levy amount of $5,121,909. We are looking at a proposed decrease in our levy of 2.34%. You can kind of see the 6-year average, and I do have some asterisks on kind of where you can see some of the larger bumps. So in 2010, that was the first year that we were operating without an operating referendum. In 2012, that is when the $700 per pupil unit operating referendum came into play. 2016 is when the bond for our facilities came into play, and then you can see 2023. So just an overview of our levy payable 2023. We are looking at a decrease of $122,494.03, or 2.34% from our pay 2022 levy, which is applicable to this current year. At the time of when we approved the maximum levy back in September, actually all of our calculations were done, and so this is not a change at all from what we were talking about in September. So just a little bit more about all the different components that make up our levy. So there's 3 components, the general fund being a large component of it. We are looking at a very slight increase of $15,186.67, or a 0.7% increase. There's a lot of different things that come into play, and so I tried to point out all of the different calculations that are happening. So we talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the meeting, where even if nothing changed for us, just because the growth in property values, there's going to be a shift between state aid and levy. So the district is going to continue to receive the same amount of dollars. It's just, where is that coming from? So you can kind of see that right here. And we actually have some declining enrollment playing into that as well. Even so, our levy is going to increase just shy of $58,000. Just because of that property value shift. Long-term facility maintenance revenue, that's actually going to be a decrease of almost $132,000. The largest component of that is that one-time facility project that we had done here at Central Building for the abatement project, and that's why our property taxes increased last year, was because of that $100,000 project. So now we're seeing the benefits of it on the tail end of now that project is coming off of our levy. Other post-employment benefits, this is opportunities for school districts to levy for some of the liabilities that they have on their books. This is actually going to decrease just shy of $80,000, and this is truly based on actual costs. So this just depends on kind of where that prior employee group is and what those liabilities are. So that will fluctuate from year to year. The other thing that we're looking at an increase on, so between operating capital, reemployment, safe schools, career and tech ed, and our lease levy, those are going to increase just shy of $170,000. The largest component of that is the operating capital. And what's happening is our general fund is actually increasing. It's about $145,000, but our debt service fund is decreasing $145,000. The reason for that is this current year that we're in was the last year that we had to pay off our capital facility bond. So we were borrowing against ourselves to pay off the roofing project and the bleacher project that we had done about 10 years ago. So that expired this current year that we're in. So pay 22 was the last one that was levied on. And so now we don't have to pay our debt service fund anymore. We can keep that in the general fund. So that's where that shift is coming up. But we have about $145,000 more that we can use now in our capital outlay because we no longer have that debt obligation. The two other components are community education. We're looking at a decrease of almost $112,000 in that category. This one, again, it really does depend on actual costs. And so the largest decrease that's happening there is our school age care program. We are able to levy dollars to help provide services for school age care for kiddos that need some additional services. What happened last year is we had basically under-levied is what happened. We underestimated what the true cost was going to be. And when we reported our final cost, the state said, well, wait a minute, your cost was $100,000 more than what you had anticipated. We need to make sure that you're made whole. So there was a large adjustment last year. This year, it is now, we're kind of evening out now. We hopefully are not going to see those big swings. So that's why there's such a large decrease, is because we had a large adjustment last year. Debt service, we are going to look at a decrease of about $26,000 or 0.95%. We do have that component of that $145,000 coming off of debt service, so that's part of it. But then also coming into play is just how our debt is kind of wrapped around in what that bond payment schedule looks like. So that's where that's coming into play. So our overall decrease we're looking at is $122,494.03 or 2.34%. This is kind of small up on the screen, so that's why I did print it for you. So this is where our final audited numbers are coming in, and this coincides very nicely with the conversation that we had during our work session just a couple of weeks ago. We did have our final audit presented for final 2022 audit. As you can see, we started the year very down at the bottom, just shy of $12.3 million in all of our funds. We ended the year with just shy of $11.2 million in all of our funds. Again, trending very well with where we thought fund balance wise. We actually, in the general fund, unassigned fund balance, spent almost $200,000 less than we had budgeted or anticipated. So again, very close to where we were budget wise, and looking at about a 23% fund balance at the end of the year. Our current fund balance policy is 15 to 35%, and we're going to continue to monitor that fund balance policy to make sure that it's still appropriate and applicable, and may present adjustments in the future. But right now, that current balance where we're ending does lie very nicely within our current policy.
And you said that was 23%?
Yes. Yep. So if you want to go ahead and. This is something that if you were watching in the Waseca County News, we do post this every November. So this is just another way to look at on the left-hand side where our audited numbers were ending, and then what does that look like for our current fiscal year, having that new balance coming in, and what will our projected fund balance be for fiscal year 23. So this was posted in the Waseca County News in November. It is also posted on our website if you want to be able to see a bigger version of this. I will also be posting the Truth in Taxation presentation on our website as well afterwards if anybody does want access to it. These should be very familiar to you as well. So these are all in our budget board book. And so this is just a kind of a reminder, and again, just reiterating where we are at with our current year, 2022-2023 expenditures. So our overall budget for the year is $33,166,276, and you can kind of see how that's broken out. Our largest portion of our budget is 81.3% of the general fund, which is just shy of $27 million. Just another way to look at our general fund budget, since it is the largest component of our budget. Salaries and benefits just make up shy of 73% of our budget. Again, overall budget of $26,970,962 for the general fund. Again, just another way to look at general fund. Now we're just breaking it down in a different way. What's spent administration-wise, district support, elementary and secondary education. Very similar to what we, again, just saw with our audited numbers for 21-22, very similar for 22-23. Peek on the other side, then revenues, total budget $30,937,464. Again, the largest component being 81% is the general fund, just a little over $25 million. And then just taking a peek at the general fund of how is that all made up. So 75% of our general fund revenue does come from state aid. We are looking at 8.8% coming from the levy. 6.1% coming from local revenue. Really, that means gate receipts, medical assistance, maybe some tuition cost sharing that we have with districts and staff. The other component, 9.9%, will be federal dollars. That would be the ESSER, the CARES Act. That will also be our title funding and some special education funding in there. And then this is just another way to view our unassigned general fund operating budget. And so the yellow bars are how many days that represents, and the blue bars represents the percentage. So really if I say we have 23% of our budget in that fund balance, really what we are saying is that fund balance would cover 23% of our annual operating costs. That's just another way to say that. So again, as you can see, those red bars are what our fund balance policy currently is, between the 15 and 35%, and we are still operating within those parameters. There are some state refund programs available, so I do encourage you to either consult your tax professional, or there's some resources here available to our property owners, our community members, should they want some additional information on maybe some potential refund programs they would be eligible for. And then I would definitely open it up for any questions or comments that you have at this time.
Any questions? All right. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And since we have no one in the audience, there's no need for a public comment period. So if there's no other questions about truth and taxation, we'll continue then with our regular meeting, beginning with payment of claims. And Director Mansfield, you had the pleasure of reviewing these this month. Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I reviewed this claim for the month of November, recommending action of payment for those claims. For account payable, it was $1,012,094.06 plus $9,644.30 for November dental, and payroll it was $880,569.81.
All right, thank
Second.
you. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Can I get a motion for our consent agenda?
I make my motion for a consent agenda
Okay.
for November.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. And then we will move on to our information items. And the first item is to discuss dates for our January school board meetings. And recommended is to hold our annual organizational meeting on Thursday, January 5th. And then our regular business meeting on Thursday, January 19th. And then obviously at our organizational meeting, we will set the meetings for the remainder of the year. Any concerns about these recommendations? Katie, do you care? No. And you can come and visit if you want. I'm just kidding. All right. We approve these later, right? There's a spot where we approve them later, yes. So we'll approve that later. We can always have more discussion if we need to at that time, but otherwise we'll plan on that for now. So moving on then to our superintendent report. So
Sure. Well, good evening on a snowy evening. As we get into the middle of December here, moving closer to our winter break. I just have a few items for you tonight, just operational things that are going on. First of all, I do also want to say thank you to our students, to our staff, to our community for responding to kind of a strange weather week. We've had if you listen to the news, the end of last week, you're wondering if we're even going to be in school this week based on what they saw was coming. And as things have shaken up over the course of this week, we've had to make some adjustments hour by hour in some situations. And so we appreciate everyone's patience and flexibility, and know that we're trying to communicate those as quickly as we can with everybody as things change. We are a diverse school district in terms of roads and neighborhoods, and in terms sometimes it's nearly impossible to find the conditions the same all across the district. And so as we work through that, we appreciate everyone getting to school when they can, and understanding that some days we just can't make it work. So thank you for that. Just a couple things happening in the district right now that are of note. Starting to get some good feedback from our PD, from our vision cards for this year, talking about getting those 30-day feedback loops through our professional days. Brooke and the team has been gathering that information as our staff gives them feedback, and we've been learning a lot. When you have staff that have such a variety of expertise and such a variety of assignments, trying to develop professional development that is applicable to everybody is another challenge that our team does a fantastic job of, but we always can learn and get better. And so we're working on implementing those. It's been very productive so far. The conversations we've had has been really reflective and how to get better and provide something that staff feels is relevant for them when they're taking time on those days. We're beginning our goal-setting meetings, our mid-year goal-setting meetings with our administrators. So I've been meeting with each of our leadership teams for our one-on-ones, talking about their department or building vision cards and how that funnels into our district vision card and strategic plan, and talking about their goals for the year. Much like my goals are built around, there's some operational things, but there's also some personal growth things in there. We're looking at the same with all of our leaders, because one of the things that I feel very strongly about is we're going to do the work to make ourselves better. But when you're setting a goal for yourself, particularly in a human business, it's about how are you growing as a leader so you can impact that more effectively. It may not always work the way you want on the timeline you want it to because of the human element of our work, but are you growing as a leader to continue to work through that? So our leadership team is embracing that process through our conversations, and I'm seeing some real engagement in that, which is pretty exciting. We did recently have our fall DAC meeting, which it will probably be in a committee report coming up here shortly, and cover a lot of the information here in the World's Best Workforce report here in just a few minutes, getting our mid-year results as well as looking at last fall. Our mid-year results are coming up here after the first of the year as we do those assessments in January and February. Our students are continuing to make progress with everything as we work through there. One of the things that we're emphasizing this year is using the assessments to really plan our instruction productively for students, and be able to not just use it as a number to assess a student. You did well, you didn't do well, but how do we use that to make sure we're creating instructional opportunities for kids that by the time they leave us, we've catered that to their needs. That personalized learning word we don't use as often as much anymore because we're just doing it. We're just working it out for each student as they get through there. And then really I think the other thing that the board is going to have the opportunity to start thinking about in the next 6 months is we're going to be planning basically the strategic roadmap or strategic plan refresh process. Our current strategic plan ends in 2024. So what we'll do this next spring is lay out the process for refreshing that over the 23-24 school year through community engagement. We'll work on some opportunities to have lots of voices at the table. We're not going to have to recreate the wheel because we have a very strong strategic plan in place already. But there are things, we've talked about this in the past, there are things that are redundant. There are things that were absolutely necessary at the time. Now 5 years later, we're looking at different emphasis, different priorities right now. So we'll lay that out ahead of time so the community sees what that looks like as well, and we give ample opportunity to get input in that regard. So strategic planning is moving right along as it always does, and it really sets our vision for where we want to go next. And I'm excited about the way we're talking about results in the district as well, knowing that we are going to get to where we go over the period of time. All students can learn and they learn at different rates at times. Staff works hard with all of our students to keep that growth, and I don't see any quit out of any of our students or any of our staff, and that's exciting to see. So that was just a brief strategic plan update here tonight, because I know we have other things that are also taking up a lot of our headspace this evening. But any questions on that?
No?
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we want to take time, much like the Truth in Taxation, World's Best Workforce is also something over the course of once a year we want to make sure we spend time with for the board. World's Best Workforce, and it came up in a previous conversation I was having about why do we call it that? It's an interesting name for it in terms of you start thinking about is it professional development for our staff? Is it growing? But actually what World's Best Workforce refers to is creating the best workforce from the state of Minnesota, meaning it's all about student achievement. So they become the strongest workforce as they leave our buildings and enter into their careers or college. And so it's a little bit of a misleading name as we get now years away from its implementation. But it comes down to student achievement goals, really what it comes down to. And so we went over this with our DAC committee a few weeks ago. We also have submitted our report to the state, so we have the opportunity to get feedback on any of that. But you're going to see here in just a few minutes that we have some room to grow. We've made some progress in some areas, and it's a work in progress as we go. But our Director of Teaching Learning, Brooke McGuire, is here, and will have the opportunity to take you through this report, and we can see what questions you have at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You can go to the next one. Thanks. And again, yep. Okay, so statute determines what those 5 areas are, but then as a district, each district determines their specific goals for each of those 5 areas. So those are those predetermined areas, kindergarten readiness, that 3rd graders can read at grade level, closing achievement gaps, career and college readiness, and then high school graduation rates. So those are the 5 we'll look at for our district. So looking at goal number 1 in terms of kindergarten readiness, our goal was that 90% of incoming kindergartners would be deemed ready for school, and based on a variety of assessments that include both academics and then just the social and emotional aspects of readiness as well, 90.1% of incoming kindergartners were determined to be ready. And so some of the steps that we're taking to increase that are increasing the communication between our preschool and kindergarten and those teachers, and kindergarten roundup in the spring, which helps ensure that parents can take certain steps to help increase the readiness of their children. And then additional preschool screening that happens at the fall conferences to catch the students that weren't assessed prior. So just ensuring that as many of those kids are assessed as possible or screened. Our second goal, that they can read at grade level by 3rd grade. Our goal is that at least 50% of 3rd graders will score proficient on the reading MCA. A slight adjustment from what we presented at the DAC, and this is what was submitted in our report, is that we can do a multi-year goal, and so we switched it to that. Obviously, all of these things we want to be at 100%, but we're trying to be realistic and reasonable, and so looking at our current percentage of 39.6%, our goal is going to be to aim for around 45% proficiency by the spring, and then 50% by the end of the 23-24.
Can you go back and explain that a little bit more?
Sure.
So our goal is our goal was 50% proficient by spring of 2024.
Correct.
Okay, and then and now you're saying your new goal will be 45% by this spring.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Which is a step to the 24. So
Yes.
we're adding a level in between.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
So then by setting our goal that way in a multi-year goal, we can determine that we're on track toward that goal and making progress or not. So the way we have it set up and working toward that goal, we did increase it from 38.5% last spring.
Okay.
And we'll just continue to work toward the state average.
Thank you.
So I know you can't see the specific numbers there. This report is also posted on our website, so you can look at that detail. This is also the NDE school report card, which is available to the public as well. But you can just see the general bars. So on the left-hand side showing our school district, 3rd grade reading. And so you see the past 5 years. And so from 21 to 22, you can see we decreased the number of students who did not meet and are increasing that partially meet. So that's positive. Slightly increased the students who exceed as well. And then you can compare that to the statewide averages on the right-hand side. Our action steps that we're working toward to increase that proficiency, we've really taken a lot of efforts to increase the quality of our materials and instruction.
specifically around phonemic awareness, which are just the early reading, foundational reading skills. And that's been happening consistently across the board, K-3, and also into 4th through 6th grade as we work to kind of remediate some of those gaps. Our phonics, we have implemented Barton, a Barton reading intervention, which all of the teachers who have used it love it and have seen great success in terms of the academic outcomes of that, all the way up through some high school students that we have doing that as well. So a lot of interventionists who are working hard with that. We've started to implement a new literacy curriculum. Amplify CKLA is at the K-5 level, and so that has a strong phonics scope and sequence. So we're helping, again, just establish that those foundational reading skills. And then also some really great reading is another reading intervention that's happening at the intermediate building. We back up a second, and then just that last point quickly. So overall, just improving our literacy instruction. We also have some teachers going through letters training, which is teaching teachers how to effectively instruct when it comes to literacy instruction. And then through our Amplify implementation, teachers will start getting training on that next month, and then we'll continue that throughout. Our third goal around the area of closing achievement gaps. And our goal, we focused on reducing the achievement gap in both reading and math for students who are Black and Hispanic. And our result was that academic gaps were reduced in reading and math for Black students, and then reading for Hispanic students. So math was the only area we didn't, but the achievement gap was reversed in reading for students who are Black. And so these charts show that, starting with our math proficiency. So you'll see after Black, 12.9% of our students were proficient, and that's an 18.7% gap from our overall average, or percentage of proficiency. And then that was in 21, and then in 22 you'll see that jumped to 22.7%, reducing that gap to 13.6%. The bottom then shows Hispanic with 13.4%, a gap of 18.2%, and that increased 17.3%. So the gap is 19 behind the average because our overall average increased as well. Okay. That makes sense. And then this shows the same thing for reading. So Black students going from an 18.1% gap to 1.8% ahead of our district average. And then Hispanic students from 24.3% proficient to 24.5% proficient. Steps we're taking to close those achievement gaps are starting to look at some culturally responsive instructional strategies to meet the needs of all students, really. And then professional development around the areas of inclusion and equity. And going back to what Mr. Hudspeth mentioned at the beginning of that, personalizing instruction, we're really looking at the individual needs and meeting gaps for specific students. And then a strong use, as he also referenced, of our data and using those assessments through screening and progress monitoring, so that we're continuously looking at how students are responding to instruction and intervention, and then adjusting accordingly. Our fourth goal around the area of college and career readiness. Our goal is that 80% of graduates will report they were prepared for life after high school on a postgraduate survey, and the result was that 80.95% of the class of 2020 felt that they were prepared for life after high school. So this shows the question that's asked on a survey, combining the responses that responded excellent, good, or average to how well did the high school prepare you for life in general after high school. That shows that 80.95% of the students who indicated they felt prepared. And steps we're taking toward that. The development of our career pathways is helping students explore some of those different options and see what could be potential possibilities for them post-high school. And really working on developing our college and career readiness scope and sequence so that those things are addressed not only in courses, just the regular content courses, but also during Connect time as well, and preparing them for whatever their options might be for after high school. And then preparing them for the possibility of them to continue their education. So talks around financial aid and supporting them to be able to apply to and be accepted to colleges, taking the ACT and offering that, looking at increasing our concurrent enrollment courses, which I think is a really good opportunity for students to experience what a college course, the content and instruction would be like in a college course, but having the support of their high school teachers. And then our Avid elective courses and strategies that are used throughout all courses as well help them with things like organization and monitoring their learning and how they're adjusting based on their response to their learning. And then development of social and emotional learning skills to help with some of those skills as well, self-awareness, self-management, to help them become independent learners and successful regardless of what they'll do after high school.
So this was from 2020 graduates. When did they do the survey?
So for the 2020, the survey response that we looked at was I can't remember what it's called, but it's taken 8 to 12 months post-graduation.
Okay.
So based on conversations at our DAC, I've dug a little bit more into that. We do 3 different surveys before they actually leave, so seniors, and then that 8 to 12 months after, it's a year or 2 after graduation, and then the culminating one is 5 years.
Okay.
And so looking at not only just what they think as their seniors, but also what the reality is after they've left our district. So we'll continue to kind of maybe adjust some of the data that we use for that, just based on what is the true, accurate reality after they leave. So graduation rates. Our goal is that 90% of all students graduate within 4 years. This was another one that I shifted slightly to be a multi-year goal. And so by the end of the 23-24 school year, we'll shoot for 90%. Our result is that 80.1% of students within the district graduated in 4 years, and you'll see the breakdown of the high school versus our ALC. And that is shown on the graph at the bottom as well. So senior high on the left, again, I know you can't see that, but that dark blue bar to the left is how many graduated, and then the bar next to that is showing how many continued. And then on the next slide, you'll see that as well. Yep, you can jump to that one. So again, 4-year graduation rate on the left for the whole district. And then on the right-hand side on the top, you'll see the senior high, and on the bottom, you'll see the ALC. So again, dark blue bar showing graduation, and you can just see for the ALC, we have a higher percentage continuing for when you're looking at the 4-year graduation rate, but then that graduation rate increases when you see the 6-year graduation rate, which tends to be a more realistic timeline for our ALC students. Steps we're taking toward that, our counselors do a really good job of setting that up early. We use something called the academic planner, which is helping students develop that 4-year plan and what it can look like throughout their high school career. They meet with students and have conversations around that, making sure they're on track and helping them meet their goals and what they're hoping to achieve. Providing the Area Learning Center is a great resource as a different setting for students that experience success in that type of setting. And then really using, as I already referenced, our data to make decisions and use of those assessments to really target in on what they need and help them be successful in order to be able to graduate. And it also goes back to the personalization of instruction to meeting their needs where they're at, and also the professional development around inclusion and diversity, just again helping meet the diverse needs of each individual student. Are there any questions?
You mentioned that the graduation rate is it's kind of like a 2-year goal instead. So what is the mid-year goal of that?
That one I just.
Or the mid-range
like
goal?
For next
Yeah.
year. Yeah, we haven't had those conversations quite yet. But I anticipate we'll be shooting for around 85%.
Okay.
Yeah, the graduation rate, much like some of our other conversations, is such a parsed out conversation, because when you have a senior class of about 150 students, then you've got roughly 70 to 80 students at our ALC. How many of them might be eligible for their 4-year graduation rate any given year? We have to honor that. We've had this conversation before. We honor that, but it does impact our graduation rate overall. But our high school graduation rate is 93 point. We want that to be higher, obviously, but we also want more students at the ALC to be able to know their plan
Yep.
and get that going there. So I think, yeah, that kind of meet halfway to that 85% mark makes sense, knowing that we want to get even better at our high school, but we also know that year by year at the ALC is a little bit, it can waver because the number of students that are there that might be eligible for their fourth year on that particular year versus the next year they might not have as many students that are in their fourth year, and they're 5 or 6 years. So it's a little bit of a tricky piece. As Brooke mentioned, these are predetermined goals that we
Yep.
need to work on. The other piece too is for our community is to be aware of, this is a snapshot. And this is, from assessment standpoint, these numbers are based on the MCA and the MCA alone.
Yes.
Which is not our only assessment that we use to support students and how they grow. But for the purpose of this report,
Yep.
that's what we're required to use. And so in the whole context of what we do, this is a relatively small portion of it from a reporting standpoint. The strategies that Brooke laid out for you is, of course, the whole context of our work. Moving on there, too. So it's this is one of those pieces that is that state accountability piece. But with that comes a pretty narrow picture of what's happening within the district. And at the DAC, we talked a little bit more in depth about some of those things to try to make sure we flesh out some of those, like the 5-year survey, like getting more things going on that way. So we
Yep.
kind of, we may not report that because it's not what the state wants to see, but we want to do it for ourselves.
Yep. Well, I appreciate that the state is letting you do these kind of multi-year progress kind of, I think it logically gives you time to actually implement programs and make changes. And I mean, if you have to like turn it around in a year, I just don't think that's realistic. So I think that what you're doing here is,
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense.
And when you
So-
see the state average of the MCA is what it is.
Yep.
Would we want 50% of our students to be passing at third grade? We want a whole lot more than that.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
But when you think about what the state average is, that gives you the sense of just what that norm is. And so we want to make sure we get back and exceed that and have, make sure we're providing the excellent opportunities here in Waseca.
Yep. And I do also just want to tell people that if they're watching at home, the DAC committee, District Accountability Assessment Committee, does welcome community members as well. So if anyone is interested in serving on that committee, talk to the district office, because
Definitely.
It'd be great to have more community members on that committee. So otherwise, if there's no other questions or comments about the world's best workforce, okay, then we'll move on. Thank you, Brooke.
Okay. Thanks, Brad.
All right, continuing then with more financial reports from Elizabeth and enrollment reports.
And really, I just more or less want to take this opportunity to say, now that we're finalized, our audit is finalized, we're moving past fiscal year 22, we're really kind of hitting that mid-mark of our current year budget. This is the time where you're going to start seeing, okay, yep, our expenditure and revenue graphs are updated, and we're able to really start comparing truly where we were last year to where we are this year, and taking that information and taking where we are at enrollment-wise, because now we're kind of in that nice time where we're kind of stabilizing and we kind of know what our trend has been this year, to fine-tune our current budget. And we've already been dabbling a little bit in what 23-24 is going to look like, but we're always working in multiple years. I guess that's the bottom line, is kind of where I'm going with my comment of just there's so much information that just continues to rely on one another. We're kind of at that trifecta right now of we finalized a year, we have some really good information for current year to try to tighten that up, and now we can start making some really, I'll say, more accurate projections for what our 23-24 school year is going to look like. So you can see all of the information in there. I am very pleased with where we're trending so far, both expenditures and revenue wise. Nothing stood out to me of something of, oh my goodness, we're going to have to make some major adjustments here. It really is going to be just more, okay, fine tuning things. So we really should not be seeing many swings when we present a final budget to you. There will be adjustments, don't get me wrong, but nothing that's going to come as a surprise or a shock to any of us. Again, enrollment, I'm pleased with where we're looking enrollment-wise, and you can see we're trending very similarly to where we were last year. But overall, the way that our enrollment is where we're starting and where we're at right now, if you look at the 5-year trend, very similar situation on where we start a little bit higher. We're starting to stabilize. We may still see a little bit of a drop, but we've kind of are in that mid-year mark where we can use this information. It's really good information where we can start making some better projections as well for where our enrollment's going to be in the next couple of years. Any questions that you might have for me?
No. So, I mean, really, enrollment is very steady. I mean, we've had 5 years of continuing to drop, or 4 years
Yep.
of dropping, and this year is just maintaining really steady, so.
Right. So
Yeah.
positive message overall.
It's a nice trend.
Yes.
Yep. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on then to committee and board member reports. Scott, do you want to start us off today?
Sure. So I had personnel, the finance for the audit exit interview, and then also facility. Facility, we talked about efficiency and energy use was a main topic. It's actually interesting when you start talking about that and what you can do and what you can save if you really focus on it. The audit interview, we've already seen all that. That's all the draft and the numbers that they presented to us. And then personnel, we talked about some, how many days for e-learning that we'll get, and we've already crossed off our snow day for the year. So that's really all I got.
Okay, thank you.
I had the DAC meeting, policy committee meeting, facilities, a couple other things about the facilities meeting. We also talked about kind of an ongoing process of doing security updates. We think our security is really pretty good, but we can always get better, so we're looking at that. Also, we were given a list of deferred maintenance for the district, and kind of I don't know if you want to call it an ongoing rolling list of projects that might need to be done here in the near future, and maybe when and what they would cost. The only other thing I wanted to mention was at the DAC committee meeting, and picking up what Julie just said, we only have one community member currently on the DAC committee, and we could certainly use two or three more. So if there's anybody, like you had said, if there's anybody out there in the community that might be interested in serving on this, they'd be more than welcome to come.
All right, thank you.
And we meet 2 times for sure a year, sometimes maybe.
Usually two or three.
Yeah, so it's not a huge time commitment.
No.
And I was on that same DAC committee. I went through a lot of that same World West workforce we covered tonight. A note I had on there was that really we talked a lot about the fact that it's MCAs, there's also NWEAs, so it's trying to figure out what assessments to make and how those really drive decisions. Sure, they're great because they're required by the state report, but how do we take that and say, well, here's what it did over here, and here's this class, and how do we address that? And really, I think all the administrators really think about that, of how that can drive decisions and how to make it better. So that was very encouraging. Finance, as he said, we talked over the audit a lot. We had a policy meeting, talked through those, and had some really good discussions there, which those will come up at the end of our meeting here. Legislative committee, we met twice. The first one kind of reviewing what our stance is on things. We have a pamphlet here that kind of lists out what the district that Eric put together, that tells what our district stance is and what our kind of priorities are. Also, we reviewed some of the other educational organizations throughout the state and what their platform is and what they're trying to do and how that works into what we have. So we also met, but I'll let you cover that one. You have something?
All right, then I have something to talk about, yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Those were committee.
All right. Well, Lindsay, besides your lovely snow day, what else is going on?
So it's pretty busy at the high school right now with the winter break coming up. So tomorrow is the band chili feed and the boys basketball game. The chili feed is from 5 to 7, and there will be performances by some of our jazz bands playing some Christmas music. It's fun. And then it's also the alumni pep band. So we're excited to have some past Marching Jays play with us.
I think, was it determined too that if the alumni are going to play, they also get a student-priced chili feed ticket?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that
We
one.
talked about that at a band booster meeting. So another encouragement to get them there.
Awesome. All right, and then the girls' basketball game is tomorrow, and they're at JCC, so we wish them the best of luck. I believe the hockey teams were supposed to play today, but I'm assuming their games got canceled.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're rescheduling.
There's a boys game on Saturday.
boys
afternoon.
game Saturday?
Yep.
Okay. The choir holiday concert is on Monday at 7 p.m. Tickets are $7 for adults and $4 for students. Alumni are welcome to sing the Hallelujah chorus with us, as is tradition here, and there will be cookies and refreshments afterwards. The Student Council is putting on our annual food drive, and right now the 8th grade is currently winning, so we need the seniors to start pitching in. To up the competition, we're asking support from staff members. So for $10 or 10 food items, they get this really cool sign above their door that says, "I supported the seniors for their," or the juniors, I guess. But, so we've been having some fun competition there. We also have holiday dress-up days next week. So they include PJs and like sparkles and blue and flannel and of course the holiday sweaters. So we're excited to celebrate in the festivities. The band is doing a holiday concert of sorts during first hour on Thursday before break in the PAC, just playing a couple songs that we've been practicing holiday music. It's been fun. The FFA did a winter clothing drive, and the junior high won the donuts, and so they will get those during Connect. I don't know if they've received them yet, or if they will be getting them soon. And then the senior class had the opportunity of talking to Mr. Dunn about just the district and things we wanted to see change in the school year, or things that we liked. And he gave us a quiz. It was a little intimidating because he was watching me the whole time for the right answer. So I think I passed. But it was a really good conversation, though. We were really thankful that he could come in.
It was. I thought it was a really, really neat experience. I know it was for me, and just to be able to talk to your class. I should say talk with your class. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, it was fun. So thank you.
Okay.
And hopefully I didn't forget everything. That's what I could come up with now.
Do you remember any questions on the quiz?
I had to name all the school board members. Most people only had to do 4, but he was like, "Can you do all of them?" And I was like, "I think so. I got everyone."
That's a challenge. I mean, well, I guess they all had to come and watch us, so you hope that they made note of names.
We did have a test on all, like, most of the information we actually had on a test prior to the election. We had all this information about election stuff, and so we had the school board section that we had to study for the test. So most kids were remembering. It was good.
Yeah, it was really good.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. So, Adita.
I was a part of the PG&D meeting, and we talked about I think it's the CRIS or CRIS staff survey response and comments, and it was very good, review for me, and they actually got very good responses. Most of them are positive, and we went through all the questions, and if there was more like 30% the people disagree, those are the actions that the committee or group will look more into it, why was the disagreement, and what we can do, how we can make it better.
Yeah.
Then the next meeting was Community Education Committee, and also the committee is looking for people from the community. There were 2 ladies, and they had so much input and ideas, and Paul was very excited, he asked also, and I think I saw something on Facebook. They are asking, please, if you want to just come and join the committee. Yep. There are very excited classes. There is a making sourdough starter. Yeah. I sign up for that because I want to learn how to make a bread, and there are tons of great classes. It's a great opportunity for community, not only participate in classes, but also be part of the committee.
Yeah. Cool.
And the rest was covered already.
Thank you.
Mine have been covered.
Yep.
Well, today I did have the pleasure of once again watching the organizational meeting webinar for MSBA, just so I'm prepared to lead a meeting if I need to for the organizational meeting, but I will send an email out to the board about some things to think about ahead of the organizational meeting, so on presumably January 5th. And then I think the only committee I had this month was legislative, which, as Grant said, we actually met twice. So this is our updated flyer, our brochure for our 2022 legislative platform, or is it 2023 platform? I don't know.
All updated after the
Yeah.
first of the year. It's still 2022
Now that I'm
right
looking
now.
at it, yeah.
Yeah.
But we had the opportunity to meet with Representative John Petersburg earlier this week. And interestingly, his priorities for education actually line up with our district really well, which is nice that he's a representative. But we are looking for increase in the general formula funding, and also we're asking to fully fund our special education funding, but really just any assistance at all would be helpful. Our district does spend $1.9 million annually to cover the special education cross-subsidies. So that's a lot of money that we pay for out of the general fund, and so any assistance from the state would be helpful. But this is just something that's handy to have in your pocket to hand out to people and just to know what our priorities are for this upcoming legislative session. And it was really helpful for us to sit and talk with Mr. Petersburg, and we have plans to meet with Senator Jasinski hopefully the first week of January. And then the legislative committee is also talking about going up to the Capitol and talking with members of the education committee and really just getting the needs of Waseca Public Schools out there at the Capitol. So. All right, moving on then to recognitions and positive board feedback. And Katie, I'll let you start.
I got my FFA fruit last night.
Nice.
Oliver got a whole box of pears only. So, very excited.
Good.
But no, I just want to say thank you to everybody for the last 8 years. It's been a lot of fun. So, met a lot of people and had a lot of very interesting experiences.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Adita.
Just want to wish everybody Merry Christmas and have a safe travel if you're traveling, and have a safe and nice time with the family.
Yes.
I would like to thank Miss Nelson for all of her work with the food drive, and of course for the teachers supporting our grades food drives, and also to Mr. Demmel and Miss Youngberg for your service on the board. It's been awesome getting to work with you guys.
Thank you. Grant.
I had two things. I hope all the teachers and staff appreciate the break and get some rest and some time away. Also, appreciation for all of the facility staff who every day on days like this when it's cold out and icy, they still make sure the doors are cleaned. Every time I drop off my kids at school, they can always walk in. Everything's always clean. I'm sure they get up very early to do that. So thank you for always keeping it safe and making sure everybody can get there.
I would like to thank all the extracurricular activities workers. And as we should, we often talk about the teams and the choir and the band, but we don't talk about necessarily the people that sell tickets, run the scoreboards, the clocks, concessions, supervision, custodial, announcers, officials, and there's more yet. And I just want to say thank you to all those people who volunteer or who come and work and fill those positions, because if we didn't have people doing that, we wouldn't probably have the games or the events or whatever. And I would especially like to thank Joe, head of ours, right-hand lady, Whitney Davison. She does a fantastic job, and I would like to kind of give a shout out to her, because I don't think she probably gets enough thanks for all the stuff she does. And then I just want to say thanks to Katie and Scott, too, for your time on the school board. You're going to be missed.
thanks.
You took one of mine, but that's all right. I'll let you. The other one that I had was thanks for everybody for attending the Blue Jay Blast events. It was awesome. I love going to that. And the money goes right back into our schools, so that's very important. The other thing is thank you for everybody. I learned a lot about a district, not just my kid going to school, but really how a district works, and that'll stick with me. So thank you.
All right, well, mine is kind of more greater community-wise. I just wanted to recognize the opening of our new building for our food shelf. So it was officially opened on December 8th. I think it was open a little bit earlier, but they had the grand opening December 8th. They are in their own building now, which is very exciting for them, right next to the Neighborhood Service Center. I'm actually connected to the Neighborhood Service Center. And certainly that organization provides a lot of support for this community. And I love that our schools also support the food shelf in multiple ways throughout the year. And our backpack program also is operated out of there. So that's a great to have them here. And I'm excited for them to have their new space. So, and I have comments about Katie and Dave, or Katie and Scott, but I'll save it for later when we officially recognize you guys on the agenda. So, but all right, moving on then to our action items. Can I get a motion for item A?
I'll make a motion to approve the, resolution of acceptance of gifts and donations.
Second.
First and a second, I think that was Dave. And that was for $250 for the choir department for boom boxes from an anonymous system. Do they make boom boxes anymore? I'm just kidding. That may be a generic term. Yes, thank you. So we have a first and a second. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call for a vote. And since this is a resolution, it is a roll call. So Caitlin, if you could please read the roll.
Grant Shepherd,
Yes.
Dave Dunn,
Yes.
Scott Demmel,
Yes.
Katie Youngberg,
Yes.
Adina Mansfield,
Yes.
Julie Anderson.
Yes. All right, motion carries unanimous. Can I get a motion for item B?
I'll make a motion to approve the final levy paid 2023.
Second.
Katie, can you flip to the back and read the amount?
Oh, hold on. Didn't read. Okay, so we're, the amount.
Yes.
Okay, so the final levy amount of so the maximum, the district recommends certifying the maximum pay 2023 levy amount of $5,121,908.63. And this revenue will be applicable to the 23-24 fiscal year.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Thank you again, Elizabeth, for your presentation and your work on that. All right, if there's no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Can I get a motion for item C?
I make a motion to approve and acknowledge receipt of final 2021-2022 audited financial statements.
Second.
First and a second, any discussion? And we do have the official electronic version in our email, thank you. But it's really not different from the draft that we had reviewed already, so,
Yeah.
yes.
And I will post that on the website as well after this meeting.
Perfect. All right, if there's no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. And can I get a motion for item D?
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Yeah, Dave, read.
Do we need to read the resolution?
Do I get to read it too?
It's in the front of the binder.
Oh, wait.
Here, Dave, I got it.
I've got it right
Oh, you
here.
got it?
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 829, State of Minnesota, as follows. Number one, pursuant to Minnesota statutes sections 205A.11, the precincts and polling places for school district election are those precincts or parts of precincts located within the boundaries of the school district, which have been established by the cities or towns located in whole or in part within the school district. The board hereby confirms those precincts and polling places so established by those municipalities. Number two, Pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 205A.11, the board may establish a combined polling place for several precincts for school elections not held on the day of a statewide election. Each combined polling place must be a polling place that has been designated by a county or municipality. The following combined polling places are established to serve the precincts specified for all school district special and general elections not held on the same day as a statewide election. And then we have, oh, we got a bunch more. Combined polling place, Christ Community Church, 2200 4th Street Northeast, Waseca, Minnesota. This combined polling place serves all territory and independent school district 829 located in precinct 1A, City of Waseca, precinct 1B, City of Waseca, Waseca County, Minnesota. Combined polling place, Faith United Methodist Church, 801 4th Avenue Northeast, Waseca, Minnesota. This combined polling place serves all territory in Independent School District 829 located in Precinct 2A, City of Waseca, Precinct 2B, City of Waseca, Waseca County, Minnesota. Combined polling place, Waseca County Highway Shop, 1495 5th Street Southeast, Waseca, Minnesota. This combined polling place serves all territory in Independent School District 829 located in Precinct 3A, City of Waseca, and 3B, Precinct 3B, City of Waseca, Waseca County, Minnesota. One more. Combined polling place, St. John Lutheran Church, 401 3rd Avenue Northeast, Waseca, Minnesota. This combined polling place serves all territory in Independent School District 829 located in Blooming Grove Township, Iosco Township, Otisco Township, St. Mary Township, Wilton Township, Woodville Township, Waseca County, Minnesota, Morristown Township, and in Rice County, Minnesota, and Lamont Township, Steele County, Minnesota. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 205A.09, the polling places will remain open for voting for school district elections not held on the same day as a statewide election between the hours of 7 o'clock a.m. and 8 o'clock p.m. The clerk, that's me, is directed to file a certified copy of this resolution with the county auditors of each of the counties in which the school district is located in whole or in part within 30 days after its adoption. And number 5, as required by Minnesota Statute Section 204B.16 Subdivision 1A, the clerk is hereby authorized and directed to give written notice of new polling place locations to each affected household within at least one registered voter in the school district whose school district polling place location has been changed. The notice must be a non-forwardable notice mailed at least 25 days before the date of the first election in which it would apply. A notice that is returned as undeliverable must be forwarded immediately to the appropriate county auditor, who shall change the registrant's status to challenged in the state registration system. If a combined polling place is changed, the change must be adopted at least 90 days prior to the first election where it will be used, unless that polling place has become unavailable for use. This is all dated December 15th, 2022.
Nice job.
Is that your motion? I'm just kidding.
That's motion.
All right, we have a motion. Could I get a second?
And no, I'm not going to repeat it.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Can you just summarize the change?
There is no change. This is an annual
there's no
notification of if we, for some reason, need to have a special election this year, we would have combined polling places instead of the way that it's done for a general election. So we do this every year. I don't know if we read the whole thing every, no, I'm kidding.
Nothing's different, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so just as we just like to make Dave work extra hard.
But the polling places are not changed. It's usually when you have normal elections, he just needed to read it through.
Well, it's reduced. Like if the school district for
Okay.
some reason needed to have a special election this year, we've reduced the number of polling places down to 4. 4.
Because otherwise you'd have one for every township.
Correct.
and
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, makes sense. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
But there's that's only if we would need to have an election outside of a general election day. So.
Right.
Any other questions or
Thank you.
comments? Yes. All right, hearing none, we'll call for a vote. It's a roll call, so Caitlin, if you could read the roll.
Grant Shepherd,
Yes.
Dave Dunn,
Yes?
Scott Demmel,
Yes.
Katie Youngberg,
Yes.
Adita Mansfield,
Yes.
Julie Anderson.
Yes. All right, motion carries unanimous. Can I get a motion to approve, or get a motion for item E?
I'll make a motion we approve the January organizational meeting dates that we discussed earlier. That would be January 5th and January 19th.
Second.
We have a first and a second. And just so you guys know that it is our normal first and third Thursdays, so. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Can I get a motion for item F?
I make a motion to approve master agreement level adjustment regarding indoor concessions advisor.
Second?
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Can I get a motion for item G?
I'll make a motion we approve the World's Best Workforce Report for 21-22.
Second.
A first and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Can I get a motion for item H?
I'll make a motion. We approve financial agreement between Waseca Public Schools and Southwest Metro Intermediate District 288.
Second.
First and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Can I get a motion for item I?
I'll make a motion we approve the reviewed policies. That would be policy 414 on mandated reporting of child neglect, 415 on mandated reporting of maltreatment of vulnerable adults, 506 student discipline, 514 bullying, and 616 district system accountability.
Second?
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
These are the policies that we review annually.
Okay.
The December pack, if you will, are all the ones that we look at every single year. And so there's very rarely significant changes. There aren't this year as well.
Okay. That makes sense that these ones would be reviewed annually, so. All right, if there's no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. And then item J, we are acknowledging the first reading of a revised policy. This is policy 524, acceptable use policy. And as Mr. Hudspeth shared in his weekly update, basically the revisions are due to state mandate or state statutory changes.
Yeah, there's some legislative changes with regards to screen time for our youngest students, what we have to report to parents and our community about the technology providers that we use,
Okay.
In terms of and how we keep things safe technology-wise. So as you have the opportunity to review this over the next month, you'll see there's about 3 pages of additional text to be added to this policy that are all in response directly to that new legislation.
Okay.
And as I mentioned to the policy committee, we're doing all these things, so we're in compliance with the law. We're now catching up to actually putting in our policy here as this policy came up for review. But it's not, it wasn't something we waited to implement. We did that right when legislation was
Okay.
done.
Okay, so legislation came out sometime in the last year or two, and then
Just this summer.
just this summer. And so we already responded to that legislation, all right? Yes. All right, so that will be up for the second reading in January. So All right, that is the end of our action items. Moving on then to recognizing our outgoing board members. So at this time, on behalf of the board, I would like to recognize our 2 outgoing board members. Scott Demmel has served on the board for the past 4 years and also served as a treasurer during that time. And Katie Youngberg has been a board member for 8 years and has additionally served in the roles of clerk and vice chair. And anything else or just those 2? Yeah, I mean, lots of things, but Katie may not know this, but you were definitely my mentor when I first joined the board. So, and you're definitely a big source of support for me and my role as chair last couple of years. So thank you. You both served our district during some really challenging times, and so I think all board members across the country, this has been an interesting couple of years, but definitely our district. Thank you both for helping us see us through to the other side. You both demonstrated your commitment to board work by being present and active at board meetings, committee meetings, and a wide variety of school and community events. In everything you do, your positive and supportive attitude for all of the work done at Waseca Public Schools has been evident and noted by many. It has been my pleasure to be your colleague on the school board, but also your friend outside of this boardroom. I'm sorry, I'm gonna miss you guys. I know I'm not alone in saying this, but I will certainly miss doing this work with you. However, I know that your support for Waseca Public Schools will continue even if you're not a member of the board. Thank you both for your time and dedication during your tenure on the board. So, thank you, Katie.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. And Scott. Thank you so much. All right, I had to write it down so I make sure I said everything I wanted to. All right. Upcoming items and reminders, other than enjoy the break for the next couple weeks. We do have one committee yet next week before the break, so Superintendent Evaluation Committee, the hard one. No.
Heading on to winter break, maybe.
I know. And if you haven't already shared your plans with Caitlin regarding the MSBA conference in January, make sure that you do so, since that is coming up not too far away. So anything else to remind people about? Okay. If there's nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks, you guys.
Okay.